A wonderful high school year was spent in Milledgeville, Georgia, in an all-girls school, alma mater of Flannery O'Connor, who years later became fast friends with my mother. Flannery visited in our home. My parents visited her home. Her mother and my mother knew each other. In that school, I had the best course I ever had in all of my academic career, ninth grade biology. High school, when we moved to Alabama, was easy, even algebra and quadratic equations, pointless but easy. I was the new kid in the junior class, became head cheerleader, and a senior graduation speaker. I won both writing prizes awarded by the school, $5 for each. Those who say college years were their best years are really in a bad shape. Oh, I had a good time, but wrong boyfriend, wrong major, no direction to the biological sciences at which I excelled. But I want to tell you about the next phase of my life very briefly. I taught school for 2 years, and I always thought that those 2 years were a waste of my life. Again, it was okay, but it informed me to let me know that that was not to be my life path. Fast forward to March 15th, 2020. I was going through my files and stacks, it's called a mess, of my old stories that I'd been going through and trying to reshare and trying to share again. That's the same as reshare, but I wanted to write that. I had to save the conversation to savor and share with you after the phone rang. I read the name Linda Griffin in the phone ID line on the screen. I didn't recognize the name when I answered the phone, but it had a legitimate phone number with an area code I recognized, and it seemed pretty clearly not to be a robocall. I often get calls from friends of friends or unfamiliar Rotarians or speech pathologists new in town, so I pressed the talk button. A deep country southern male voice said, "Miss Bobby Boyd, this is Max Griffin. I'm calling you from Dothan, Alabama, just to say hello." My mind flew back 65 years to a muscular high school senior football player who sat on the second row as I taught a high school senior English class. "Max Griffin, of course I remember you. What a delightful surprise." He said, "I just talked to Wathan Ennis in Op. You remember he was in our class. I told him I would call you. You don't come to our class reunions anymore, so I thought I would check up on you." For the next half hour, Max and I talked about those days, those events, those people in the cotton mill town of Op, Alabama. Now I'll share with you, gentle readers, gentle listeners, a couple of examples from our conversation. I'll let you in on memories, you who love remembering, and as an example of cultural imprint. Our conversation ranged from football, at which Max had excelled in high school, college at Auburn, and in the Navy. We talked about his love of opera, to which I had introduced him when I took the drama club to the university up the road to see Othello. Max asked, "Do you remember Carol Ann Benton? She was 2 years behind me. She was my girlfriend." I certainly do remember Carol Ann and Gypsy Schofield were best friends. I remember that old high school seeing you and Carol Ann standing by the front door. Gypsy, who had been absent the day before, came sweeping by in her cheerleader outfit. Carol Ann had been bereft. There was certainly no email. A lot of people had no phones. She called out, "Hey, Gypsy, smaff you." Gypsy bounced up to hug Carol Ann. "Ain't nothing maff me, smaff you. Do you know what that is? What's the matter with you? Ain't nothing the matter with me. What's the matter with you?" I laughed till I was limber. Nobody knew why. "Well, I can still call you Miss Boyd, right?" "Of course, Max. What else?" We talked about his days in football in Auburn and the master's degree he earned at Troy University, his days as a football player in the Navy, his years as a winning high school football coach, and most touchingly about getting a letter from Carol Ann when he was on a naval vessel in Hong Kong harbor telling him she was marrying someone else. He said, "I really called to tell you that only when I got out in the world did I realize what good programs and teachers I had in high school. You were so smart, Miss Boyd. Your classes were always interesting. I'm glad our class dedicated the yearbook to you and Harold Martin. Who but you would have encouraged a football bum to join the drama club? My years at UP were not wasted."